Molly's face on him. I was looking at that mother had clothes on. I don't see no mess on there.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Evening.
Yeah. Oh, it hurt me. It was a delay.
Yeah, it was really good.
That's a long delay.
It's always a delay. I usually walk, I think.
It's 6 o'clock. Is everyone ready?
Yes.
Yes. That was bigger.
Everybody ready? Okay.
Can y'all hear me?
Mhm.
All right. I'm knocking on the table. All right. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's February 20th Seaford Board of Education meeting. My name is Jeffrey Benson, Vice President of the board, and I will be presiding. I'm calling this meeting to order, and it's 6 p.m. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, and I'll need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Yes. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions or recusals?
I abstained as I wasn't present.
All right, and that motion passes 3 and 1 abstention. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I'm going to turn my camera off and stand.
Yes, I was going to do the same. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take a moment of silence. Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for January 21st, 2025 board meeting. All those present can vote. I'll need a motion.
Dara Savage, I move to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any recusals or abstentions?
This was where I was supposed to abstain because I wasn't present.
All right, and that motion passes. The next item on the agenda is public participation. I don't think we have any forms, but I'll check with Cam. Are we good? All right. All right. The next item on the agenda is Superintendent's Communications. Dr. D, you have the floor.
Well, I think we have safely made it through, what is this, our third snow event for the 24-25 school year. We are going to knock wood and call this the last snow event of the year. But I just would really like to thank everybody's patience and cooperation, buildings and grounds crew, transportation, our administrators and teachers, our community members, the kids. Everybody has just been so gracious and accommodating, and just the comments on Facebook saying thank you or posing questions or saying, hey, I didn't get the message, reaching out. It's just been really a wonderful way of just the way that folks just respectfully asking questions, clarification. Hey, I need this information. Can you tell me why the decision was made? And I really appreciate how it has really brought out kind of the best of folks in some ways. And the input that I've gotten from community members, from my colleagues, the advice, hey, good call, or, Sharon, did you consider this piece? Don't forget, it's windy, kids need jackets, it's cold, and have you thought about this part? But we're through it. Get back to school tomorrow. We're going to finish the week strong. I don't know. Dr. Benson, I heard we have a couple of basketball games on Saturday. I think that maybe something's going on this weekend. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Maybe
Absolutely. Southern Conference champions.
Southern
Both
Conference,
the boys and our Lady Jays. The ladies
Right.
play at 1 and the men play at 4 p.m. And hopefully we take both of them.
I
Saturday.
mean, why wouldn't we? I mean, it's gonna be the event. So we're gonna do that on Saturday, and then
Yes.
we're gonna come back and Dr. Jeanette, next week, I feel like we have a 5-day instructional week next week.
We do, and our principals and teachers are very excited about it. I was on Zoom calls with them all day.
Yes, so we are excited about that. And yeah, so in the interest of time, I think that's all I have for today. So we're gonna finish the week strong, and we're looking forward to next week.
Dr. D, you may kick me with your good leg. I just ordered a new snowblower, so I wouldn't be mad if it snowed just one last time for the year, so I can see how it works.
No,
If
you're
not,
gonna
I'll
have-
wait till
We got
next
one
year.
too, so let's do it. We got one.
No, you're gonna have to save that for 2026. Absolutely, absolutely not. No, see, the fact that you bought that, now you've jinxed us, and we're not gonna get.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. D,
Thank
for
you.
those communications.
Yep.
Again, yes, very, very excited for our Blue Jay family, both the boys and girls basketball team. They showed up this season and was able to clinch the South, and we're looking for them to be able to take it all as far as the conference championship on Saturday. So if you haven't got your tickets, Dr. D, did we sell out yet?
No, we're not sold out, and we will sell tickets again tomorrow at district office and at the high school.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. All right. The next item on the agenda is board communications. Does any of my fellow board members have anything to share? Nothing. You're good, Marcus?
I'm good.
All right. We'll move on. The next item on the agenda is Delaware Public Education Finance Commission. And we'll have a presentation by Mr. Patches Hill and Mr. Cameron.
So, thank you. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
All right, excellent. So, Patches and I wanted to bring this presentation. This was created by Nick Johnson, who is the CFO, or some title at Polytech, and Emily Falcone, CFO at Colonial. And this has been presented to many groups. It was presented to the Public Education Finance Committee, it's been presented to the chiefs, it's presented to the DASBO group, it was presented to the HR group, and we thought it would be good to share with everybody here in regards to understanding the unit count system, which is complicated, and not that everybody will be an expert at the end of this presentation, but just to understand some things with it as we go along here. I'm going to kind of present, Patch is going to kind of fill in some of the money gaps as we go, but understanding that the PFEC met on Monday of this, right, Monday of last week, for a 4-hour plus meeting, because there's a lot of discussion of how funding is gonna go forward. This was presented, and I guess is being called the CFO model at this point, and they're waiting on some other models to be made. They talked about some all-funded models, which is where they basically give us a lump sum of money and say, okay, that's what you get. And, you know, obviously, we think there's some issues or challenges with that. All the HR directors and all the CFO, and I don't want to speak for, I'll speak for the HR folks, I'm the president, I won't speak for all the CFOs or the chiefs or any matter, but I think everybody agrees that the system is broken and needs some fixing. I don't necessarily know that we all agree that we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, though. I think there are some fixes, and that's what this presentation shows. Give some background on that. So in this, and I don't want to read, you know, everything here in regards to what's on the screen, but a couple things to understand. These are some options to fix it that we think get us to where we're going to be and actually makes the unit count system work the way it's supposed to. But there are some assumptions there that you can see. Referendum reform is critical. The process of capital funding needs to be addressed. Probably the most important one around is that third one. The equalization formula must be unfrozen and updated, because oftentimes we hear, well, you have equalization. We do, but it doesn't work properly. And so that's part of this, and that's kind of talked about here through the presentation. Teacher recruitment retention will still be an issue. I mean, even if unit count's fixed, it doesn't put more teachers in preparatory programs. And then stagnant decline allocations have lost buying power over time. So there's just some stuff to keep in mind as we go through the presentation. If you look at this, I think I can do this, right? No.
You can also hit the X on the left side there, Ken.
Right.
No, go all the way over to the, or move them over to the left or hit the X.
So that's what I need to do. There we go. Now we can see the whole screen now. We just moved to the other side of the screen. Oh, nobody got motion sickness. All right. As you look at how things go, the students are the building blocks of this funding system. So the students generate Division I units, which then generate our secretaries, principal, district office positions, okay? Division I units have these pieces, so they create all these things. I'll kind of yield the patches on Division II and Division III. So Division I units tell us how many teachers we get. Then it tells us, based on the number of students, how many secretaries we get, how many administrators, both principals and APs that we get, and in some aspects, how much district office personnel that we get. And then they also generate Division II and Division, I guess, 3 units, but I'll leave that to Pat to talk a little about that.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway from this is that it quickly gets a lot more complex than people really understand. Everybody seems to think, oh, it's unit count, but they don't understand the Division I and what that does when we start talking Division II. I'll give an example right now. Division II energy was a solution that is part of this. And right now, tonight you'll see that I'm presenting to you that I need $225,000 more in local funds to make up we're missing out in Division II energy funds just because of the way the formula works. So that's just one area where, there's things where we need to update and kind of start to move forward and look at things a little differently.
And then you get into equalization, which is supposed to be, because I'll use the example that we tend to use here. There's a lot more money on the eastern side of the county because they have this thing called the ocean real close to them that generates them a lot more money. And so what's supposed to happen with equalization is because they have a higher tax revenue to generate from, that we get money to help us be equal. The term equalization, but that doesn't work for us. So as we go to the next screen, here's where the breakdown starts to occur a little bit. So when you think about the students generate the teacher, the Division II with other costs, and the Division II for energy and equalization also generates this. We talk about this piece up here, the secretaries, principals, and district office. Well, it also generates academic excellence units, driver's ed, mental health positions, opportunity funds. But as you can see here, that doesn't come with the other parts of what Division I generates. So anytime that we hire somebody into an academic excellence position or a mental health position, yes, those are units that are generated, but we don't get more principals or APs to do observations on those people. And that's just one example to consider as we do that. Same thing with opportunity funds. We get a nice chunk of money from opportunity funds that we hire teachers with for our MLL students in other situations. But say you hire three people per building with opportunity funds, that's 9 more observations that have to be done by the principals, but there's no extra admin that come into that. And I know with some people with the board, I mean, Dr. Savage, I know you know exactly this because you're in an AP position and understand that we get all these, we're still responsible for all these people and observations, but we don't get the extra people to do them. So this is one place that this is broken, and so understanding this on the graphic side, and I should have said, this was put together by the CFOs, because, and Marcus, you can probably talk to this a little bit, a lot of folks on the Public Education Finance Committee didn't understand how this works, and always respond, oh, the unit count system's too complicated, we don't understand it, but we started talking about units, energy, what's generated, so this was put together to kind of explain that a little bit.
We've spent 3 months trying to educate the commission.
And so that's why we thought this was important to go over for us and the public. So once again, more things, we talk generate, but related service, and when you think related service, that's OT, PT, speech language pathology, pathologists, school psychologists, of course, nurses, visiting teacher. Students drive what you get here, but you don't get any more secretaries, principals, or district office to help support them. So then you kind of look at the ratios, and some of this ratio stuff has changed over time. We look for one, you get 1 unit for every 20 regular ed students in 4th through 12th grade, which then once again kicks into this, the generation, then 1 for every 2.6 students with complex special ed needs, same thing, you get the support positions with it. And that's what our needs-based is based off of. If anybody's been doing unit count long enough, you remember when we switched to this needs-based system, because prior to this, you were really based on a person being in the classroom, and if you had a student not show up, that could mean a teacher. But with the needs-based, it started getting to partials and everything, and so it's been a solid system. So these are what the ratios currently are. I'd like to point out that, you get the 16.2 for regular ed students in K to 3 because they want the lower class size. This is why we end up having to do the waiver every year. 8.4 for students with basic special ed needs. This used to be just 4th through 12th grade, but I think Dr. Visual, you correct me, 3 years ago, they passed this to have K3 basic, and they incrementally brought it in, so this ratio is now met. And so then 1 unit for every 6 students with intensive needs, and 1 unit for every 2.6 students with complex or special needs. Think of a lot of our students that are in our CP program or autism being our complex students. So obviously, the more of them you have, that's where, a lot of times we're hiring one-on-ones or additional support that helps in that generation of that. So despite all of this, there is no units provided for what's on here. You don't get a unit for an art teacher, music teacher, health PE teacher, librarian, technology support, which is near and dear to Patch's heart, and constables. These are all things that we have to do on our own with our unit allocation. So for instance, if Frederick Douglass generates 28 units, you're not hiring 28 classroom teachers. You're hiring those teachers, but you're also having to take an art teacher, a music teacher, a PE teacher, librarian out of that. Now, we've used Title I to support that at times. We have used some opportunity at times to support that, but then the technology support, And those units are different ways, like we'll use some academic excellence, we use custodian units for those. The constables, we've used some of our safety and security money that we've had for that, and we've used academic excellence. So that affects that as we go. So same thing, you don't get, and none of these units generate you technology support at the district level, payroll, benefits, or accounting. So when we get the secretary units that we get generated, we have to take them and we're hiring people. If we earn 24 district wide, that's for 6 buildings. That's for this district office. And in that, you have to hire your payroll and your benefits and your accounting people, okay? So the system as originally designed, special education was addressed through the placement, it was sufficient at one point in time. So this is what the house looked like when it was working. You know, because then you also have your federal funds in there, you have all this, you get everything, then equalization of local tax base to kind of even it out, if that was the final level of things. But unfortunately, this is what has happened over time, because we add all of these different things in, and all of a sudden, you're trying to hold this deck, you know, the deck, the house of cards up with one person here, because they're now responsible, if you go back, they're responsible for everything here, then you add this in, they're still responsible for it, but we don't get anything extra for what we've added. So you're trying to keep everything going, but you're not getting support to do it. And so they actually took 2 schools and looked at them here, one being our neighbor to the south with Laurel Elementary, and Wilbur is it Colonial, I believe? I want to say it's Colonial. Okay, thank you, Dr. Savage. And you can see currently what everything is here. So it's key here, and I'm going to read this because I want it on the record for the recording purposes. Despite having 71 additional students and more ML and low-income students, Laurel Elementary, this only earns 3 units beyond what Wilbur earns. The additional opportunity funds provided Laurel is helpful, but not enough to meet the needs of the 334 additional high-need students. Okay, what's equalization supposed to do, right? Equalization is supposed to even the playing field for the high-need schools. Title I is supposed to do that, which we maximize to what we have, but it doesn't. You can hire 3 Title I teachers for each building, but you're not getting that support with them as well. So one of the things that's why it's being called the CFO model, I guess, is we can, instead of redoing the whole unit count system, it's bringing it up to par. So ideally, what you want to do is every Division I unit or non-Division I unit gets you the Division II cost plus the equalization, which then help you generate the secretaries, the principals, and the district office positions. DASA as a group, which is the organization that administrators in the state belong to, has been fighting for more support for years. Because look, we love the fact that we got HB 100 and HB 300 to give us more mental health support, because our students desperately need more mental health support. But that's just more than it puts on, you know, so we have social workers in buildings, that's more than the principals and assistant principals have to manage, more the secretaries have to manage. So we want to get into where everything drives through that unit system. And that's kind of been the ask of what we're looking for. You know, group unit ratios be adjusted to account for low common E and ML needs as well. Because right now it doesn't, it's just regulated and keyed in there. But if you add the low income and MOL students in there, once again, they're giving you more support. You know, and especially in the areas that have the high populations of low income. And a lot of what they're doing with the Ready Consortium in the city of Wilmington as a result of the lawsuit is the same problems that Western Sussex deals with. We've talked about that for a long time. There's a lot of spotlight on what goes on up there, but the same issues that they deal with there, we deal with a lot of those same issues with the Woodbridge, Seaford, Laurel contingent in Western Sussex County, and part of IR too. I don't want to leave out our friends there from IR. So if you look at this, if we adjust the calculations and put a weighting of 0.81 for low income and a 0.15 for MIL students, this is what was recommended by the AIR report. And that was the group that came in and looked at funding and sat down with every district and talked to the superintendent, CFO, and HR director of every district. This is what happens when you adjust it. So the units earned, okay, Wilbur earns an increase of 24 positions. Okay, Laurel earns an increase of 39 positions, okay, including in the support. Opportunity funds get converted to weighted units, Division 2 and Division 3, and Patches, this is what makes you excited when you see that increase goes up to almost $1.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
great.
And so this, if you do this, the system goes back to doing what it was designed to do, is to generate based on what you are doing with the positions that you have. So all these one-offs that have gotten added and not going through the unit counts have skewed it, and that's why the house is broken. So this is the same thing. This is examples of what the ratio was based on the AIR report of what they think we should be doing. And you look where now if you have a complex student who's low income and also MLL, the ratio goes down to 0.4. And believe me, we have students that are MLL, low income, and complex. I mean, so instead of just being placed in one category, you're getting funding for every category they need support in. And that was AR's recommendation.
When, and the funding, is this based on a state funding, or is this actually supported by the federal as well, or is that where, like, I know eventually state sounds like we're gonna be, I'm concerned about the state being more involved with it later and not getting that funding from the federal side of it, and.
So what we're talking about here is all state.
Okay, very
And so these ratios here is what was recommended from this report.
good, very good.
To go forward. You can see some of them we already have, like the 20 for the regular ed 4 to 12 is what we have, the 16.2.
I thought some more.
But these are, if we were to add those, if you go back to what they're talking about here in this converting, it leads us to this. And this, it's not like we just picked these out of nowhere. This was the recommendation of, Dr. Giron, I think it was like a 2-year, was it a 2-year report or something?
Yes.
It was a long, extensive report that they did here. That I think has to be fully presented or something by October, November.
The
It
report
was, I feel like it was at the very beginning. I think I had just become superintendent when they presented the report, but the report had even been finished before that.
Yeah, so it's been reported, but there has to be adoptions from it by
Yes.
November of.
That's the goal
The goal,
is,
correct.
the goal is, but that has been, but that's also a fluid time because there's also equalization committee who's doing their work and that work is gonna go hand in hand. So,
And the other thing is not to confuse this with the PEC committee, which is the Public Education
compensation committee.
Compensation Committee. They're the ones that are working on, we keep hearing about, that was the one that made some recommendations and then Governor Carney said, no, we're giving 9% or 6% and the 3% to teachers. That's a whole separate group that's working on the compensation, trying to get the starting salary up to 60,000 as soon as possible.
One thing to add and to clarify what you just asked is there, although this is state units and majority state funded, there's the local portion of everyone's salary.
Yeah.
Still, if you hire that position, you have to match.
Match, yeah.
So there's still a local tie into that.
Yeah, figure that, okay.
Which is sometimes, even when we could be fully staffed, we leave units open, one for the give back,
Yeah,
the take back, whatever you wanna call it.
okay.
And it's, to put an employee in a unit is a cost of around $100,000 for a teacher, give or take. If you average it out, you put benefits, OECs in with somebody coming out. So just think about it in that number. So if we don't fill 5 of those units, that's $500,000.
Yeah.
That was it, because we can't afford that.
Right.
It hasn't been that much like that lately, because we can't staff in general, the staffing shortage nationwide for teachers. So you can see our little friend down here in the corner is happy and everything is great. Because we run everything through the unit system now. Mr. Rice, to your point here, Title I is federally funded.
Yeah.
So there would be a piece of the federal side there that if you entitle Title I, if you use your Title I money to hire staff, that you would generate from there as well.
Okay.
That's the one thing in this formula that has to kind of get figured out with this, but it needs to be in there because they're a teacher that needs observations, they're a parent that needs observations, whatever we have to be hiring from there as well. But if you put in everything that has been added over time through the unit count system, it generates what it's supposed to do. Equalization starts doing what it's supposed to do, and we're where we're supposed to be. A lot easier said in pictures than done, but this is the ultimate goal from the CFO side and the HR side, and I believe the chief side, because I was able to cover the meeting for Dr. DiGirolamo, that this was presented at the chiefs meeting. It was interesting. It was Secretary Martin's first meeting with the chiefs, and this presentation was given, and she was like, I feel like I just got a master's class in unit count, which was really good for her to hear. She actually had a copy of this presentation at the PAC on the Monday previous Monday. You know, talk about by fixing distance structure, change can be implemented quickly, weights for different needs to be added in time and reevaluate as needed. But if you do this, we think by FY 2027, you can get there. Obviously, it's a lot of money. I mean, we've talked about, I think you've seen some stuff for the secretary and the governor saying, AIR's report is, you know, $1 billion budget for the Department of Education in the state. Obviously, just like anything, like when the basic for K3 came in, or the new pre-K ratio came in, you do it over time, so it doesn't hit you all at once, so you can phase it in. The summary, you know, our current system is not broken, but it's overburdened. So I think that's a good way to put it. The unit, what we have in place, if we do these fixes, serves what we're trying to do. Use tools already in the system to fix it, which we have. We already have Division 2, Division 3 funding there. You know, we got to work on this soon. Our students can't wait because it has been adjusted over time. It's been too long. There's still other changes needed, going back to that original assumption piece that we have to say. Referendum reform, equalization has to be updated, and the capital funding shortfall. When no CNs were approved this year, that puts everybody who needs a project another year down the road. And we, you know, next board meeting, Mr. Henry's going to be here to get you guys to approve the assessments that have to be as part of the Senate bill, and you're going to see like kind of where we are there on that end. So, thank you. I mean, questions. I feel free to, I guess, go to Emily and Nick, but Patches and I will try to answer any question that the board has as we went through this. But we thought it was very important that you guys see this. Mark, especially with you on the committee, you've seen some of this. I don't know what comments you have, but we thought it was very important. I think all boards can see this.
Yeah, that helped me.
So I got to be careful, right? Because I'm the co-chair of the committee. So, you know, the last thing I want to do is, you know, openly express an opinion. It's going to push the committee one way or another, because obviously we're a body, you know, we have to come together and vote. But when I met with Senator Sturgeon initially, the things that I said that I want to see addressed are supports for low income and ML learners, capital reform, referendum reform, and transportation reform. I think we get something like $75 per McKinney-Vento student, and then we have to pay for the rest of that, which is a ridiculous cost that is really that's a huge burden on a quote-unquote land poor district like us, opposed to some of our neighbors who have beachfront property, or they're more population dense, which means that property is valued higher. Our ability to hire teachers is affected by that as well, because we can't negotiate as easily as other districts that have more land wealth, because obviously that 30% is a big difference, and having to meet that is a much larger burden on us. A lot of things that I've been hearing, a lot of critiques are like, you know, if we put more money in, that's just more positions, and how is that helping students? It's absolutely helping students. There was a comment that was made at the last meeting, you know, where is the money going, because it's not going to our students? I was like, well, it's probably going to positions, and it's probably going to people that are overburdened, and students can't get the adequate help that they need. I think I text Dr. D talking about some of our ML numbers. You know, some schools are up to 40%, you know, multilingual learners. printers and we have one person servicing them, that one person, while they may be doing the best they can, that is not enough. One person cannot service 40% of a school successfully. So we can't expect students to get all of the things that they need if we don't have the money to fund the positions to give the students the services. I'm sorry, I get really passionate about this. I'm like warm right now. And it's like, it bothers me. We need people because that's how we service our students. I don't know what else it looks like to service a student other than programs and curriculum and things like that. That's a one-time purchase. And I don't know what else it looks like servicing students if we're not paying people to provide services to our students. Because at the end of the day, if the school district is doing everything they can for a student, the kids only get half of what they need. You know what I mean? So we're going to do everything that we can to get them up to that 50% that we can do. But we need help. We got to be able to, things have to change and things have to change soon because we can't wait. And as far as the cost of education in the state, yes, it's a large portion. Yes, more money needs to go into it. Education is the foundation of our entire society. Every position that everyone holds is based on their K-12 education. And if we're not investing in it, our society is going to collapse. And I think we're seeing that now. As we've defunded education in this country over time, the value of our country has gone down. We don't make things here anymore because we don't have the workforce to make things anymore. We don't produce the best scientists anymore because we're not investing in the STEM education the way that we need to in this country. And as the state is a microcosm of the entire country, we're going to work to get as much funding as we can so that we can get back to where we need to be. I'm done. Yes. I'm done right out there.
Now,
Cam, as far as building capacity of relatively new administrators, it has taken me these 3 years to really start to understand the units and the different divisions and all of the things. This is great information. How is it being used to build the capacity of new administrators? I don't know who all it has been shared with outside of the committee or outside of school boards, but this is really, really good information. I happen to have Dorcel Spence at my disposal, so I have been learning quite a bit, but everybody is not that lucky. How can we use this information?
So I have done, I'm trying to think what it was. I have periodically done a presentation of principals cabinet, which I call Unit Count 101. I've done it a couple times. And then I've also, especially when we get a new administrator in, I sit down with them and go in a little bit more depth. Dr. D and I talked about using this presentation at principals cabinet to let them see this as well. But we have always tried to do that. The cohort that we have in the school leadership, I took them through the unit count 101, and we got done. Miss Briggs, our visiting teacher, you don't know very well. She's like, you gotta know all that? And I said, you do, but you learn it over time. I said, and of course, I gave them this view. I said, here's what you need to know from a building level when you first get in. But the more that you know, the better off, because then and look, we always joke, like, when I do a unit count presentation, I get a lot of questions, and then I'll get but I want principals should be advocating for more support in the building. And when we can do that support, we do. But there's also times I have to get put hey, you didn't earn that, or I always have I'll sit down with them. Here's your wish. What's your wish list? If the unit count fairy came down and granted you a unit, what would you use it for? And we're always evaluating that and trying to see where we can or can't give support. But yes, Dr. Sepsher, we are going to use this at a future principals cabinet to educate as well. I don't think this presentation can be shown to enough people on that end, but we do have another one that we kind of give them. This is unit count 101, which obviously evolves as ratios and different things change.
And it's also, it's also a workplace quality thing as well, too. Especially when I think about our assistant principals. And, we always hear teachers complaining that referral got thrown in the trash or something like that. Well, was it a small infraction? Chances are it's probably a small infraction. The principal didn't have time to really sit there and address that issue because there are so many other things that they're burdened with doing. Well, not burdened, things that they have to do to make a school function. And so sometimes they have to prioritize certain things. But there are things that sometimes fall to the wayside because there are bigger issues. Not saying that isn't an issue. It's just we need more. We need more help. We need more, and that's the beginning, middle, and end of it. We need more help. We need more support. Like, it's the only way that we're going to make this education thing work.
So, joint finance met yesterday, I believe, and there was some discussion on this. One of the questions that the CFOs, and I think, Patches, you talked about this, that Dr. Carson from Sussex Tech said about, they need to run on the CFO model. They need to run the numbers to see what that cost would be if you, because we have that information. Here's the people that work in these buildings, here's from the HB 100, from 300, from Opportunity, from all this. If we put this in, just like you saw the Real World Laurel examples, what does that cost statewide?
Mhm.
How many more positions does it generate? And you gotta have that idea if you're looking at these models, because correct me if I'm wrong, PAC has the CFO model, and there's two other models still being generated.
Yeah, so the other two models, so one basically is the model that we have now, a couple minor tweaks, just as a foundational, almost a control group, I guess you could call it. And then the other is a more open, basically the full AIR, this fully open, here's the money, do what you need to do with it. Which, we keep hearing about, obviously we keep hearing about flexibility and things like that, which is a good thing, in which, both of the new models do provide a little bit more flexibility. Well, one provides a whole lot more, obviously, because that's the name of the game. But then there are real concerns. There are real concerns about teacher positions, how our district's going to spend the money, or what guardrails would be there to make sure that districts are spending the money in the right way.
The other challenge, Mark, with that, in this model, you can still have predictability
Yes.
of what you're going to have. And otherwise, you're getting to May 15th every year, and you're probably ripping 15% of your staff, because you don't know what you're gonna get the next year with the unit count. This is in the HR world, the person that has to do the staffing. This gives that predictability that you're like, hey, well, units, oh, hey, we're up X number of kids, I'm okay here, or we're about even, we know what we're gonna generate. Where that's the fear of the all funded like that is
Right.
the challenge. So that's also something that as HR director, we've tried to say, you want to talk about around everything, every year you're gonna have to rip 15% of your staff. That's not gonna help anybody.
And that's why I wanted you to go.
With all that information, how does it look for as far as us moving forward with it? Does it sound like it's something that's promising, or is it something that's being kicked down being kicked down the road?
I don't believe that it's a can being kicked down the road at all. This was a priority. This is a priority for the governor. It's a priority for both education committees. I don't think there's ever been more alignment in the state for the will to want to do this. Yes, it was spurred on by a lawsuit, but I think there's an actual genuine will and a contingency of people that are ready to make it happen. We will see change. I can't even begin to predict what that change is going to look like, but we will absolutely see change, and I do believe it will be for the better.
Awesome. All right. Any more questions? All right. The next part of our agenda are action items. We're at 7.01 school choice. I don't know who's going to take this on since I am presiding tonight.
You still can. You can put a motion on the floor.
All right. Well, the recommended action is to approve school choice applications 2026-30 through 2026-31, and to deny school choice applications 2026-29 and 2025-82 through 2025-85 as presented.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Any abstentions or recusals? That motion passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda is field trips. The recommended action is to approve the field trip agenda as presented.
Marcus Ryder move to approve the field trip agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes 4-0. Next action item is 703, facilities request. We have none, so we'll move on to 704. Mr. Cameron, did you want to read anything in regards to this prior?
Yes, if I can figure out how to get to it from where I am on here. I can move this to middle. There we go. Okay. All right, so I know this seems crazy because we just did something with Title IX in 23. So there were new Title IX regulations, if you recall, back in 23 that we had to adopt basically a whole new policy. I will refer to it right now because it's the way it's been referred to. It was during the Biden administration, the Title IX changes. They were vacated by the courts. And so we've been instructed, and DOE finally did give us the same instruction that we need to go back to what was in place prior to the Biden administration's changes in Title IX. So if you recall, when these were adopted, Mr. Zoll shared with you that anybody who, say somebody had claimed something Title IX violation prior to the new regulations going in, we had to use the old regulations, and then moving forward, we had to use those. Basically, what we used to have is what we're going back to here with this first reading. These are the regulations that we basically had to keep in a drawer in case we needed them. Based on what our council has told us, this is what we should do, is go back. And DOE has basically then also said, any Title IX violations that took place during the ones that were vacated, we're supposed to go back and use these for. So we have that too. So this is the first reading of our new Title IX policy, which is our old Title IX policy because the new Title IX have been vacated. So basically, this is the first reading of what we need to do going forward.
All right. Any questions? All right. The recommended action is to approve the first reading of JIIA Seaford School District Title IX policy as presented.
Dara Savage, I move to accept the Title IX first reading as presented.
Marcus Ryder, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes 4-0. The next item on the agenda is GBAA, Sexual Discrimination and Harassment Policy. Mr. Cameron?
Yeah, so GBAA goes in direct correlation to JIIIA. And so anytime we have to change to JIIA, we also have to change JBAA. So this is the recommended first reading for GBAA in conjunction with our Title IX changes.
Got it.
Which goes back to the old one. Which goes back to the old one.
Yes, which once again, it takes us back to the previous policy that we had prior to May 15th of 2023.
All right. All right. The recommended action is to approve the first reading of GBAA, Sexual Discrimination and Harassment Policy as presented. I need a motion.
Marcus Ryder moves to approve the first reading of GBAA Sexual Discrimination and Harassment Policy as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes 4-0. All right. Moving on to the next action item. We have KL Relations and Governmental Agencies Policy. Mr. Cameron?
Yes, if it's all right with you, Vice President Benson, I'd like to take 7.06 and 7.07 and kind of discuss them together. Obviously, you'll need separate motions and approvals with the way it is on the agenda, but it's just easier to kind of talk them in conjunction with each other, if that's okay.
No problem there.
Okay. So we took a look at relations with government agencies, obviously with some of the things that were going on in the country in regards to the ICE situation and things like that. We took some look at policy. And we really wanted to, I mean, here's the case of this here. This was adopted back in 1983. I mean, obviously, this is why we're doing this policy review, and this one got elevated up. We took a look at it, we talked with our policy committee, which is Mr. Wright and Dr. Savage, and we're bringing KL, and so where KLG comes in, which is, let me say it right here, is relation with law enforcement authority policy. I'm sure back in 1983, there must have been a reason the board felt they needed KL and KLG. We think that we can do what we need to do with KL. We can eliminate KLG, and with the regulations under KL, which we're going to work on at March's policy meeting, we feel that we can do what we need to do. KLG is not one of our recommended, the Delaware School Board, like that we've gone through and changed everything to. KL was there, so KLG is an add-on. So by doing what we're gonna do with KL policy and then the regulations in March, we feel that we can eliminate KLG. I don't know if you have any questions. I hope that makes sense.
Makes sense to me. Fellow board members, all as well?
Yep.
All right.
All right. The recommended action is to approve the first reading of KL relations with governmental agencies policy as presented.
Tara Savage, I move to accept the first or approve the first reading of KL relations with government agencies as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed? That motion passes 4-0. We'll move right on to 707. The recommended action is to approve the first reading of the deletion of KLG relations with law enforcement authorities policy as presented.
Marcus Strada moves to approve the first reading of the deletion of KLG relations with law enforcement authorities policy as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries 4-0. All right, the next item on our agenda is 708, transfer of transportation contracts. Ms. Simmons?
She's not here. Dr. G, do you want me to take this one or you got it?
She'd have to.
I'm right here. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so as you can see, Diane's bus service turned back in the contract, which is bus 33, due to the lack of drivers. So we've now taken over the contract. No days did affect the students. She turned it in, we were able to cover it. So this becomes Seaford School District bus route, bus 103. And because of the nature of this, it coming from a contractor back to the district, we were more comfortable with it becoming a board piece. And that was if I'm not mistaken, that was the direction of the Department of Ed as well, to do this as board action as well.
What's the cost? Roughly, like, does this cost us more? Does it stay? I'm just curious.
Hang on a second. I can look and see.
I don't have the definitive answer for you as far as that, but what happens now, instead of us paying a contractor a set amount, we actually only cover, it's just like a person's an employee and we have the bus already, we already had the bus. So in this situation, we're paying a bus driver, so we're covering the local portion of that, which is a 90-10 split. So it's a state will automatically pick up the state portion, which they were with the contract as well. So
Gotcha.
How did we attain the driver?
We actually had an aide that had got their CDL and was kind of doing some subbing buses when we needed someone to sub. And so they took it over full time. So we were fortunate that we had that person. kind of waiting in the wings. And I mean, to be honest with you, Ms. Simmons kind of knew that this was coming, and that person had worked on getting their CDL, and I think I actually did a little subbing for us a little bit, and then worked into this. So for once, some timing worked out for us in the right direction.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Any other questions?
What
What was that, Marcus?
I'm just curious. I'm just full of transportation questions today.
I have
All
that
right.
picture that I took, but I'll have to.
Okay, no worries.
I can tell you.
Yeah, we're good. We can go.
All right. The recommended action is to approve the transfer of transportation contract as presented.
Mark Strada move to approve the transfer of transportation contract as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes 4-0. The next item is 709 FY25 paraeducator salary schedule. Is that Mr. Patches Hill?
Yes, thank you, sir. What we're asking here is, I don't know if I'd call it a clerical error or a lack of understanding, in the budget bill for last year. But if you look at this year's budget bill, you'll see in the governor's recommended budget, there's a clarification that says any paraprofessional who is eligible for both salary supplements shall receive the higher of the two. What we had here is a situation where last year where the bachelor's salary supplement was included, and it looked like it would actually end up being, it was actually on the local side. And if you look at how this is depicted up top, you see that the para-pro amounts are actually included at the top, but then it shows that they're also supposed to be included at the bottom. So what we plan to do in future implementations of this, but this is how it was presented in the collective bargaining agreement, is we plan to clean up all this and how it's presented. But for this year, what that means is we have to move and get this reapproved. We've been paying everybody correctly with the exception of, I think it's like, was it 10 employees that we determined that were in that category? There's basically 10 people that were impacted. They're only impacted at 50%, and it's between now and the end of, 58% because of where we are in the year and later. So roughly what we're asking you to do here is reapprove this so that we are working off of the correct for the bachelor's para-pro with the clarifications that have been recently brought out through the governor's recommended budget.
All right.
Back pay the ones that we didn't do that with.
Actually, we've paid them too much.
Oh,
I think eight of them was too much, and
yeah.
Two of them was.
You didn't hear them too much, huh? They were all right with it. Yeah.
So with us paying too much, do we have to collect or?
There's a process for getting that through. Basically, it's why you want to do it now, is because it goes through and it's divided over the pays that are left for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And I think.
Got it.
Yeah, when we looked at it, what was it? I think maybe the most was $20 a paycheck.
Yeah.
Minimal amount, what it did, because we were only talking about a portion of that.
Exactly.
And we're talking about like roughly, what was it, $1,000, and you're talking about 50% of the year.
Yeah. So we're good, yeah. They got her.
So we plan to have this clarified, and what we do next year, number one. Number two is, next time we do a collective bargaining agreement, we will try to make sure that we have a different set of, but basically we want to structure the Excel slightly different, so it's more clear. Because these things at the bottom can change, specifically the state piece can, where we're not able to change the top because it's in collective bargaining.
Right.
So,
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Awesome. The recommended action is to approve the FY25 paraeducator salary schedule as presented. I need a motion.
Dara Savage, I move to approve the FY25 para salary schedule as presented.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That passes 4-0. Mr. Patches, you back up.
So what I want to do is start with the draft all funds, which is on the left, before we go into the items that will be voted on. This is not for approval, but what I had mentioned to y'all is that I would share what a potential all funds budget would look like in the future. This is based off of system generated operating units and where they were as of close of the month. The reason I want you to see this is I want you to see what you expect next year. What I also want you to note is that the numbers in here are based off of what the system has generated for those operating units. What we traditionally do when we look at this month's financial reports is there's lots of things, because I have to present to you what my recommendations are, which are not what's in the system. The system is basically what the system of record is. So in some of these instances, you're going to see that the numbers in this report do not match what I'm about to present to you, but they will going forward. And I just want to call that out because I want you to see, because in the future, what should happen is that this report and my revenue report should be balanced. And anything that would be in there that we weren't going to use, we could either count as contingency or put it into long-term savings and set asides and those sorts of things. So again, just showing you what it would look like. So now let's move over to the finance reports. What I'm going to do is kind of like Pam did in the last one. I'm going to present to you both the month's report and the final budget for this report at the same time, and then you can do your voting on this separately. So what you really see here is this month's operating unit expenses. So we are at 58.9% of the fiscal year with a total of about 51.7 expended, and with encumbered, we're looking at about 57.06% of the year. So we are pretty much locked step in this on the on what we've been doing. You'll see again, this number is much different at 13 because this is only the discretionary fund. And I want to call that out specifically because when we get over to, I ask you to approve the revenue, I'm going to show you something. So as of right now, you will see some cost centers have again been trending high. The major areas that I probably need to call out to you is that two specific areas is that with the adoption of a new student information system, there is not a was not a good system for using nurse data and for in a nursing office. So the district was put on the line basically with its new student information system to figure out how we start school and give the kids and the nurses basically what they need. We actually ended up going out and procuring a solution through the data service center. Next year, we will not have that expense. It will actually be absorbed by the Department of Ed because they are going to pay for that. But for this year, we did a one-time student services increase from 25,000 in the preliminary budget there to 37,000, and that's to cover that additional expense. The other area is if you look at maintenance and buildings and grounds area, they actually have multiple ones. So it's operation and utilities. We're requesting. Remember the all other costs and the electricity utilities piece of unit count. Well, because we're basically about to go over in that because of the increased cost, which we've all seen in our power bill, specifically both with our local power companies as well as the city of Seaford. We actually are requesting that the operation and utilities budget go up by as much as $225,000. What we hope is that as we get into the springtime and power consumption goes down and we have a really cold winter, we hope that we can not hit that, but that's basically what we're requesting to cover what we anticipate with some trending and budgeting of kind of maybe where we're going to end up. So any questions about the discretionary fund side here? If not, we will, one piece I did want to share with you. With the buildings, we went to a new approach too, and I think y'all will like this. In the past, we did a preliminary budget and we kind of worked different numbers. What I did was what I'm calling a held harmless approach for our buildings going forward. I took the preliminary unit count, I took the September 30th unit count, and I took the mid-year unit count. And I actually did a chart for all of these buildings, and I actually took the highest of those three numbers. And the reason is that once a building plans to deliver services for students, they need to plan on that. They also need to plan on, if a child leaves mid-year and they've already spent the money on that child, we can't necessarily take that money back from a building. So what I did was a kind of like I call it a held harmless approach, and I took three different numbers. And so what you'll see for like Central West, Blades, Frederick, Douglass, Seaford, Middle, and Seaford High is that those numbers have been adjusted accordingly into what I'm calling their held harmless number, because there is a set per child amount that we normally assign to that. We do that both for the student and the performing arts. So I'd say the general line and the performing arts. The other thing we've also updated is the middle school and high school vocational funds amounts, because that is generated based off of CTE minutes, and we have those CTE minutes now, and we know what the state has given us specific to that. A report recently came out, and so that's also been updated. So, any other questions on this one?
Good.
If we move down to tax collection, you'll see that we currently, I think we were just shy of 130K with 30,000 roughly in delinquent collected. Overall, that is just over 9 million for the year, with about 350K left to meet our goal, and what we basically budgeted off of locally. Any questions on that? Set asides is the next one. We are holding constant still. We've not used any, but we've held constant at 2.9 million in set asides specific to these areas, and we believe we should continue to do so. And last but not least is the monthly revenue report. Now, what you're going to see here is that revenue is higher than expenses. And we did that specifically. We may change this going forward when we get to the all funds budget, and that's why I said I did something that I said I wouldn't do, was change a lot. But I really wanted to highlight that in these instances, you won't see a lot of change in the local side, and you really don't with the federal side, because that's tied to our consolidated grant. Where you see that up top is in the state bucket, because there is a difference in how some things were calculated. Fact of the matter is, we did not increase our expenditures. So even if we're off on the state revenue side, it's really not going to impact us, because we are okay on the local side. But I really wanted to trend that out for you so that I could try to get as close as possible. But if we come in short on that, as we get closer to the end of the year, I probably will bring back a recommendation for our final budget, that we kind of match that and lower it. But as of right now, where we're trending, I felt comfortable with that. So what you'll see is at the top of this one and in the original expenditure report is that there was a column, and Cam, if you could scroll back. This one is kept because it's still anticipated, because a good portion of this is out of our control. So we left that as anticipated. But if you go back to the first page, Cam, you'll see that the first page has what I'm calling the preliminary budget on expenditures and the final budget. And so that will show you the change in the two, and we're really only going up, if you see that, overall about 400,000, even though, like I said, the revenue increased quite substantially. But again, I don't want you to be scared by that, because we did not change our expenditure goals. We just changed what we're expecting in revenue. And a good portion of that is non-discretionary funds. So, any questions?
So when we done that budget prior to this year, we had put enough in there to cover all them areas that did actually or went up because of the cost of fuel or whatever else.
Yeah.
And so we didn't hurt ourselves in any way. You didn't have to take them somewhere else.
Yeah, basically that's what you we do have additional capacity to do that one time.
Yeah,
kind of.
I know.
If it becomes what we'll probably do for next year is look to see how we can kind of adjust that.
Exactly.
But that's why you see districts get to a point over time and they want to go out to current expense referendum. We're not in that venture yet, but that's basically what that cycle is about, is adjusting that and trying to figure out.
I know we do say that in Firehouse, that's why I'm a little familiar with it.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
And then numbers are about like here,
Yep.
big numbers. Very good.
All right. Any questions?
All good on my end. Got the thumbs up.
Good job.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right. The recommended action is to approve the monthly financial reports as presented. And I need a motion.
We're gonna try to move to approve the monthly financial reports as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good.
Opposed? That motion passes 4-0. All right. Mr. Hill, one last time.
He presented, we just need to vote, right?
Oh, we just knew that. Okay.
Good.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry about that.
So yes.
The recommended action is to approve the final budget of FY25 as presented. I need a
Sarah
motion.
Savage, I move to approve the final budget of FY25 as presented.
Much so, a second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
That
That motion carries 4-0. All right. As we move down, we have our long range agenda. We have quite a few things going on. So on February 21st, we have Dancing with the Stars from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Central Elementary. Who's all participating? Do we know? No? All right.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm sure Miss Phillips is participating.
I am sure she is.
I think that's just like their dance. I don't think it's actually Dancing with the Stars, Dancing with the Stars. Like, I think that's just their dance.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But you're right. Miss Phillips is the star. So there you go.
All right. So on the 22nd, we have a spaghetti dinner fundraiser from 4 to 6 p.m. at Blaze Elementary. Well, it's with Blaze Elementary at the Seaford Moose Lodge.
Cool.
February 26th, we have a spelling bee at 9 a.m. at Fred Douglass Elementary. February 27th, Character Palooza from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at West Seaford Elementary.
I said booze.
Also, say it again.
I thought it said booze. I thought it was booze time.
Also on the 27th, we have One Book, One Fred from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Fred Douglass. February 28th, nominations closed for Teacher of the Year.
Behavioral health.
Behavioral health, as well as S-Boy.
Educational support.
All of the above.
Yes.
Hopefully we got some great nominations. It's always fun to attend those ceremonies in the fall. And we also eat good, so I'm always happy with that. March 1st, we have NJROTC Fallen Heroes Memorial Drill Meet at 8 a.m. at the high school. March 2nd through the 8th is National School Breakfast Week. So does that mean y'all feeding, Dr. D?
Oh, as usual. And I think individual schools will communicate with, with what that looks like for the schools.
Awesome. March 2nd to the 8th is also School Social Work Week. And we definitely appreciate our social workers. March 5th, Multicultural Night, 5 p.m. at Central Elementary. March 6th, PTO meeting, 5 p.m. at West Seaford Elementary. Also on the 6th, first and second grade showcase from 6 to 7 p.m. at it's Blades Elementary at the high school. March 13th, we have a talent show from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Fred Douglass. March 13th is Cultural Heritage Night at 6 p.m. at the middle school. So I guess we got to pull multiple duties if we're going to be able to hit them.
Yes.
And then that brings us back to see one another, hopefully in person. March 17th, our Board of Education meeting at 6 p.m. located at district office.
So we're back on a Monday night schedule for our next board meeting.
Yep.
Dr. Benson, point of
Yes,
privilege,
ma'am.
please, before we move on to the executive session. I do not think we have had a board meeting since the Hall of Fame induction.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
And I should have, and that is my fault. I should have mentioned it in the board comments, but I want to, with my full Blue Jay heart, extend kudos to the committee for a fantastic weekend. It was
Yes.
outstanding. Everything
Yes.
was done to a T. The honorees were so happy. And a lot of us got to see some of our old teachers, and it was outstanding. I know you and Mr. Wright were heading up that committee, but I also know that Mr. Cameron, and Gigi as well played a huge part in that. It was outstanding. And I wanted to say it not in executive session. I wanted it to be on the record. It was phenomenal. Kudos to everyone involved.
Beautiful night.
Get
Beautiful
all-
night, day, presentations, everything. I really enjoyed everything about it. It made me feel very prideful of who we are as Blue Jays. Just to see individuals smile and their families happy, to see their families honored. I think it was done very, very professional. And then on Saturday, to go to the Seaford Museum to have their stuff presented in just a different way. I thought it was just excellent.
Phenomenally
Excellent.
done. Phenomenal job.
And we've already had our core kind of district office team has met and debriefed and started planning for next year. So that was super fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. I will also say, Dr. Savage, during the meetings leading up to it, it really wasn't a heavy lift. It was more so how were we going to nominate, who we're going to nominate. But once we got past that, everything really was streamlined, and a very big thanks to district office and also Cam and Gigi for you guys taking on some of that heavier load in the midst of the execution portion of what we had planned. It really, really went down pretty well. And in my opinion, we may end up growing out of our location of where we hosted it, possibly.
Already. Next year it's going to be, we already need to start looking now.
Yeah.
Start looking now.
We'll keep
Yep.
that in mind.
Any other
Thank you
comments?
for that point of privilege, but I wanted to make sure you all got your flowers. So thank you for that point of privilege.
Yeah, it was an awesome time. All right. Well, I guess that moves us into executive session. The recommended action is to enter into executive session. So I need a motion.
Marcus Ryder, move we enter into executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries 4-0. To everyone, we appreciate you guys for attending this meeting. And we hope you have safe travels off the air.
Right. So this is where
717.
There you go.
On the breakout, right?
Yes, we're going to break out.
I think what we discovered with the folks that are in person is that we actually have to stop
Stay.
the Zoom. Yeah, we're going to stay here. We have to stop the Zoom for the public, and